Hi, I've been recently thinking about different kinds of games I've not seen for a while. And it's these that I'd like to talk to you about today. And what better place to start than top-down racers? Once a very popular kind of games, especially in the multiplayer scene, keeping friends glued to their screens, sitting at the same couch and trying to one-up another. These were the games that started off on the very first popular 8-bit systems like NES or C64 and carried on with us all the way to the early 2000s, just to disappear and never resurface in the mainstream again. I mean, do you remember how fun it was to play Micro Machines against that buddy of yours, fighting to cross that screen border before he did, leaving him in the dust just to claim that elusive victory point? Or how important couch elbow play was, arguably as important as what was happening on the screen. Or how cool it was trying to push him off the track to overtake him after that extremely difficult turn that both of you always had problems taking at full speed. Yeah, the answer is as simple as it is outdated. It was hella fun. And something that we took for granted for years until it finally disappeared. It's hard to tell what exactly happened, what turn of events made the top-down racers obsolete in a blink of an eye, but one day they were there, and on another all we had were these modern 3D behind-the-car arcade racers and true-to-life simulations with online multiplayer only. I'm not gonna say that emergence of 3D graphics is to blame for it, cause Ignition was top-down and in 3D, and it did quite well too, but it's not a false statement either when I say that the more advanced the 3D got over the years, the fewer of these games we had. It's perhaps a weird coincidence and nothing more. Perhaps. I think that there's no other genre than FMV Adventure Games that had such a huge and unexpected boom, and spawned literally dozens of different games in the span of just a couple of years, just to then near instantly disappear and be forgotten. In the early to mid-90s, with introduction of CDs and seemingly near limitless capacity of that storage solution, game designers wanted to make their games bigger, more realistic and involving. And while they could have settled for better storytelling, larger and more populated game worlds and more intricate puzzles, going for the digitized graphics with real actors was easier and faster choice. Not always better, but nearly always cringe, as they often ended up using unknown and rather bad actors. And sure, while there were some outliers like Under a Killing Moon, its follow-up Pandora Directive or Phantasmagoria and few others, that they were truly fun, well put together and immersive, most games turned out to be either boring and repeatable or clearly made just to cash in on the digitization fab before it faded away. Now, it would be unfair of me to claim that FMV adventure games are an entirely dead genre and that there are no games released in it, but we literally get one or two at most every few years now, like Her Story, Late Shift or Telling Lies for instance, and while they're not bad, and way better than most of these were when the genre was at its heyday, they never gained the popularity necessary to bring back the genre, and to this day stay comfortably in the realm of obscure and little-known games. How could I talk about FMV titles and not mention traditional point-and-click adventure games? I couldn't, so here we are. Between late 80s and late 90s, so a solid 10 years, they were not only one of the most popular and beloved games, but also a genre that was the most robust in terms of number of released titles and spread of themes that they covered. From prehistoric, through very popular at the time fantasy and less so realistic, to always fun science fiction and anything in between. Point is, if you were into something, whatever it may be, chances were that there were at least few adventure games touching the subject, and most of all, that they were most likely pretty good. And sure, it could be argued that many, if not most, were very linear and offered a single-time experience only, but that would be an unfair generalization. Especially that there were dedicated and talented studios like LucasArts or Sierra among others that not only made sure that many of their games were playable more than once, but also that they offered deep, engaging and captivating story that many of today's adventure games could still learn from. It's worth pointing out, pun intended, that point-and-clickers are also responsible for later cinematic adventure games that we still get to this day, in the form of games by such great studios as Don't Nod, Telltale or Quantic Dream. And these are some of the most engaging and touching games of the last decade. Life is Strange and Detroit Become Human are the ones I can wholeheartedly recommend. Anyway, to be quite honest here with you, we do get an odd traditional game in the genre from time to this day even, but they're really rare and most of the time stay within the realm of indie releases, often banking on crowdfunding to be launched. So, while not dead, point-and-clickers are definitely on the prolonged life support. What was the biggest genre of 1990s? It's not an easy question, as there were two major contenders. first-person shooters and real-time strategies. But given that the first is still doing fine, more than fine in fact, and every other game today whichever the genre it mixes tends to be utilizing the viewpoint, it's gotta be the latter. And yes, it's the RTSs that I consider to be mainly dead by 2024. Sure, there is an occasional game released every few years, and a good one even less often than that, but other than these last few efforts, hardly anyone cares about them anymore. Perhaps it's because they evolved into MOBAs, and this became the next big thing, although even they are not as grand as they were a few years back, or perhaps it was video game market's oversaturation, as between late 90s to mid 2000s it felt like every second game released was some kind of an RTS. I mean, Star Trek, Star Wars, whatever the brand you can think of, had its own RTS game or games. And while some were of unquestionably high quality, like Dune 2 and 2000, Warcraft 2, Command & Conquer games, or even StarCraft, that in itself was in large part responsible for spawning of the esports as we know it today, not all were made the same. And between many greats, as many shit nuggets hit and stunk up the entire genre. It's just my guess though, cause I honestly don't know what happened for RTS to be hit so hard to near disappear off the market, but they did, and now they're barely a shade of what they used to be. Which is a shame, as the resource gathering, base building and armies training trifecta of mechanics, while on the surface real simple to grasp and follow, was really difficult to master and hella addicting to most gamers of the time. Present company sadly excluded. Couch co-op games have been dead and forgotten for the most of late 2000s, and then unexpectedly resurrected in the mid-2010s by the likes of Lovers in Dangerous Spacetime or Overcooked games. These are small indie titles perhaps, but ones that did a great job of reigniting the fun that it was to sit among friends in the same room and compete with them or against them, having drinks and a lot of fun. Ever since then, while most of the releases are rather small, they are coming steadily, and we have quite a few decent games that can be enjoyed in the comfort of the elbow wrestling environment today. But one genre that I failed to notice to re-emerge, short of maybe Mario Party games that are relegated to one platform only, are the competitive sports games. You know, the likes of Decathlon or Summer and Winter Games by Epix. Titles that brought us together in front of the screen, allowed us to type our names in, and had us competing in the Olympic sporting events, seeing who would be a better athlete. In some early cases, it was quite literal, as many of the disciplines required either maniacal joystick waggling, or as crazy as that, repeatable opposing keys presses. Both as dangerous to the controllers as they were capable of giving you a carpal tunnel syndrome at young age. Still, as painful as this could be, literally and metaphorically, they were also some of the most fun we could have in a group of friends in the late 80s and early 90s, and something I would like to see come back today, preferably in a less dangerous to gamepad and wrists manner. If you had PlayStation 2 or competing systems at the time, you definitely played Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. In fact, you've played many more extreme sports games, stuff like countless SSX releases or Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX titles, and numerous others not always endorsed by famous sportsmen. It was a time when I felt that there were way too many of these and I couldn't easily distinguish between them, with many of these game series releasing nearly yearly. Now, I'm not a big sports gamer, cause I care very little for sports in real life, and I even never gotten into super popular Tony Hawk's titles either. But I can appreciate a good game for what it is, even if it's not for me, and even if I was never going to be playing it. So, with most of these being rather high quality and pretty fun, it was surprising that they've suddenly disappeared into non-existence around the late 2000s. I think that skate games and Shaun White snowboarding may have been the last few major releases in the genre. I mean, sure, we've got Descenders and Lonely Mountains Downhill in 2018 and 2019 respectively, but that's two small indie titles in how many years? At least 10. They're both pretty good too, and as far as I know were rather well received, so the market is there. What happened to the games though? Maybe while the interest is present, the audience is just not big enough for a triple or even AA release. Or maybe these smaller, dropped every few years or so random games are plenty enough and no more is needed. Hard to tell, but the fact stands that extreme sports games are no more, and once they were everywhere. You know what I loved playing in the 90s to get my mind off things? To forget about problems and worries? And no, it was not first-person shooters. I mean, it was, but not mainly. The genre I'm on about, as you can by now clearly see, is Vehicular Combat games. They always somehow manage to scratch that calming itch and keep me grounded. Which is odd, as back then, all the troubles I might have had were the troubles kids had, and nothing grown up or serious. Then and there though, To the young and stupid me, they meant the world, and I needed to calm myself down. And funny enough, the easiest way for me to do so was to shoot up some buddies from the comfort of high-speed heavy armored cars. And 1990s to early 2000s provided plenty enough choice and high-quality games for me to have fun. First on the Amiga, where I had supercars games and Slick and Slides among others, and these were mostly top-down and 2D. And then, a few years later, on PC and console, considerably higher quality and fidelity, Death Rally, Carmageddon and Twisted Metal, all in different viewpoints 3D presentation. There were naturally many more games released in the genre, but it's these few that come to mind now. What most of them had in common though was that they were action-packed and fun, sometimes literally twisted and often infinitely replayable. And as soon as the Vehicular Combat games peaked, they popped, and we've not seen nearly any of them since. Sometime around early 90s, when you said you were playing an RPG, you most likely meant that you were playing a dungeon crawler, a role-playing game that often gave you a party of different race and class adventurers, a grand quest or a task to fulfill, and a dungeon, mines, castle cellars, or a location similar to these to explore and conquer. They were usually filled with a whole manner of different buddies, big and small, all of them out to get you, and occasional puzzles of varying difficulty. Typical party consisted of melee combatants and casters, often supplemented with a healer, thief or a ranger/archer, and the entire experience was viewed in first-person perspective, originally moving in steps and turning by 90 degrees only, with time evolving into fluid full 3D movement. And while in the early 2000s we've received 2 Legend of Grimrock games and excellent examples of a modern take on the genre, and a couple more titles in the last decade, though this had some roguelites mechanics mixed in, it's hardly enough to resurrect the genre and consider it being well. Which is a bit sad, but also kinda understandable, as most first-person RPGs these days span numerous locations, most of which are outdoors and often cover large distances, sometimes even entire continents, or in case of those sci-fi ones, even planets and solar systems. Still, sometimes, not often, but from time to time, I do reminisce the simpler times and spending nights scouting countless dungeons, seeking that one key to open the door that was the only thing standing between myself and the boss fight that would no doubt not end up well for my party. Movie tie-ins is the only kind of games in today's video that I think I know why they disappeared. And yes, one of the factors were their historically rather low quality. I mean, it's been a running meme for years, before the memes even existed, that most movie tie-in games sucked. And you know what? Perhaps it was not all, but most really did. I mean, the odd outliers like GoldenEye 007 on N64 were few and far between, and majority of the games were made with little love or care put to them, as fast as it was possible to release and as close to the movie as it was possible, to cash in on its popularity before people realized what kind of a shit nugget they were investing in. It was not good for the developers, being rushed to compete often bug-ridden travesties. It was not good for the gamers, being disappointed time after time with each new tie-in. And most of all, it was not even good for the investors who finally realized that it's better to be late and earn money than right on time and be in the red. And as the tech progressed throughout the years and games got bigger and bigger, requiring entire teams first and then multiple studios to complete, their budgets skyrocketed too. So, making a game based on a movie that would cost nearly as much as the movie itself was nearly never a right call, and fortunately for all of us really, it's a call that hardly anyone makes these days. So yeah, movie tie-ins died, and with this I can honestly say that it was mostly for good. On-rail shooters originated in the arcades. They were made, same as most other games for the arcades, with a sole purpose of making money. So, they were very demanding, giving you the right set of tools and mechanics to start off, do well for a little while, and begin to enjoy the game. Just to put you down a few minutes later by a seemingly rogue attack, shot, grenade or whatever else. Something that you think you could have spotted faster and avoided, and that you've only failed to do because of bad luck. So naturally, you would put another coin in and carry on. This time for a bit shorter, as another coming out of nowhere shot eventually hit you. Now, this one was a bit faster, but definitely also one that you could have dodged if you spotted it in time. So you dropped another coin in, and that would repeat for a little while, until you've noticed that you did not get that far at all and wasted a handful of coins, and would need another one at least for even a remote chance to complete the game. And home conversions of these were not different at all. I mean, you did not have to pay for each try anymore, but the difficulty was definitely still there. And you still had to memorize all the enemies' locations, where the grenades or bombs might come from, what to avoid, and all that quote-unquote fun stuff. And as it turned out, as fun as on-rail shooters may have been in the arcades, if you didn't own a light gun at home, playing this with a mouse or even worse a controller was not something to infinitely repeat until you got good. It was at most a fun palette cleaner between other, more content-rich games. With said light gun though, it was nearly as good as in crowded and smoke-filled amusement centers of the yesteryear and a time well spent. By 2024 though, the genre is no more. I hope that you enjoyed this trip down the memory lane with me and reminiscing about the games that are no more. At least not in a number and quality as they were in the past. And while some are gone, deservedly so, others could really use another breath of life and an occasional release, as I feel that there still may be market for them. Perhaps not as big as in the past, but one nonetheless. All that said, what are the genres that you feel that are gone and I might have missed talking about today? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and maybe share it too, it helps more than you know. If you didn't, then don't naturally. It was fun talking to you as usual, and I'll see you, or more accurately, talk to you very soon.